much as I hate to.
Yeah.
So,
Don't we all?
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you guys too.
Madam Chair, when we have a lull, just to let you know a couple of things from conference. The agenda now has the address of the courthouse at the top. That was one of the things we were missing, and our phone numbers for contact at the bottom. It's the other thing we're missing. The rest looked pretty good.
Good.
So we had a session on open meeting laws, agendas, and minutes. So those were just some changes I asked him to make based on that class.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is I will be gone this week to the crime prevention conference in Bozeman with the Board of Crime Control. So we'll be available via email and phone, but won't be able to come in. So.
Good.
Oh, and next Monday is a holiday, so we should discuss if we're going to do a meeting on Monday or Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody told me that this week. I didn't look at it, but I think they might be right. Columbus Day?
Mm-hmm.
That, and they've already started. Tammy's on top of things. I should
Yeah,
visit
14
August.
days.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we want to meet on the 15th, on Tuesday?
Yeah, it's so.
I think so.
Okay. And that's already started again. That's all I had.
What else can you tell? Go ahead.
No, I do have a question. On the cell phone, I hate carrying two phones. And we work it out. I asked that to Debbie start off with, and I think you said Gary Olson does it. The county pay half, and mine, then I only have one phone to carry. Or
The
what's
county pays $20 towards his every month.
Okay, can I do that too? And then, so I don't have to carry two phones and change up my number just to the one? Because everybody calls me on my regular phone anyway,
I found
my
out the
cell.
hard way.
And that county phone is so, I don't know why, the messages I don't get, I mean, they're might be stored in there, but you might not get them till next day. Of course, I had that problem with the other phones, and not getting messages at the right time. But it should be better to just have one phone. If that'll work out, just talk to Debbie on something like that then, or would you?
What's your pleasure?
I'm fine with it. I've always kind of wondered if there was a way to pay by call rather than $20, because I think we're overpaying. I'd just like to maybe go over it with Debbie, make sure that taxpayers are treated correctly on that one. They get the phones for free. So there isn't a charge to taxpayers, so I guess my pleasure is okay as long as we get some details from Debbie. So maybe revisit it on the next agenda,
Sure.
if that'll work, depending on how Debbie feels. I have a feeling she might be going home ill today.
Okay.
That's, I like Gary, yeah, that's what I.
Okay. What else can you all tell us about the conference from Mako?
For 2 weeks ago now.
The insurance board, JPIA, has voted to approve the jail standards, new jail standards, and they have been worked on jointly over the last couple of years by MSPOA and Mako. Dennis McCabe, who is considered the most knowledgeable guy in the state on detention centers, is going to be putting a white paper together so that we have a firm understanding of what it means, and we'll be bringing it to the Mako membership at the midwinter. So we don't have those yet. If we have standards, of course we have to follow them by law. And then the other thing that came up related to that, the ACLU. ACLU visited our jail just not long ago. It was a fairly new jail and had some issues with the windows not being big enough. So several jails have been closing because of all the different things that we have to do because of the ACLU visits. And the ACLU, without any prompting from the prisoners, is of course representing the prisoners. It was brought up by somebody, and I think it was Valley County, said, I'm not gonna let him in. There's issues of privacy here, and so we're not letting him in. And it was a good discussion on what kind of authority do they have to insist they come in and represent people who have not gone to them for representation. So that's maybe something we could talk to our sheriff and Nick as the administrator in the future.
What other things did they find wrong with our jail?
Actually, I think that was it. They just want more sunlight for the inmates, natural sunlight for a different amount of time.
We were discussing the ACLU going and checking jails for.
Yeah, we're set up for next month.
We had one visit, didn't we?
No.
There was a report.
No,
Nick's not here. Nick had said something about them wanting more windows.
no, they haven't been in, but the rec has to have free moving air. So we talked to, well, he's not here, Mike about that, about changing the windows in the rec room.
So they haven't been here yet?
No,
Valley County, this was discussed at conference. Valley County said no, they're not coming in. And there were two reasons they did this. It was led by their county attorney. One is there's privacy issues with the ACLU coming in and, you know, going through the detention center. And second of all is they're representing people who have not asked for their representation. So they really have no jurisdiction. Valley County's gonna wait to see if there's any kind of a court order that means they have to come in. And we're suggesting that other counties actually follow that advice. And that just came from the Public Safety and Justice Committee. So it might be something to follow up with Valley County on.
I've been in communication with Mako and they said let him in. Mako's gonna be here with us,
I'll follow through.
but not talk, I mean, they don't need to talk to any inmates, they don't represent any individual, so.
That's the problem though, is they're going to court, they've shut a couple down. It's costing counties a lot of money to do the retrofits that they have determined they want made. And they are claiming to represent the inmates, even though the inmates didn't ask. And they are kind of opening that door. So if you would call Valley County and just ask them, I would be happy to follow up with them and put them in touch with you. It would be probably Bill Behrens who has that committee.
Yeah, I was at that meeting too, and I said, these ones that got the older jails, they don't want them to come in, because you know they're gonna be so expensive or completely shut down, so that's why they're not letting them come in. But, yeah, the same fellow was here before. I talked to him and he set things up with you, he told me, so.
From Mako? Yeah, and I just talked to him last week,
Okay.
and he's gonna be able to make the
Yeah, this was
meeting on
2 weeks ago.
next month.
Can't think of his first name now.
Tim or Jim?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I've got his phone number over there.
Jim?
Well, and as new as our jail is, I can't imagine that they could come up with very much.
Well, and we've been discussing the free air ever since we talked to DOC on that contract where we didn't meet prevailing wages, and that was addressed in their contract also. I guess fresh air, not free air, sorry. It's all free air.
Doug and Charles, come on up. Brenda. Let me grab a
No,
chair.
I'm good right here.
You just gonna sit there?
Yep,
You can grab the chair.
I'm loud enough.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. I brought Charles with me because he was with me, when we talked to Lewis and Clark County. When we went there to Lewis and Clark, I thought they were just gonna give us the computer printouts for the forms we needed. I had no idea they were gonna have their law enforcement officer. I would ask Brenda to go with us, because we didn't know they were gonna give us the amount of information we did. They were ready to just sit us down and go step by step from the treasurer all the way through the sheriff's department. That's exactly what they do. First of all, what I I ran a couple reports, one for personal property and one for mobile homes. Personal property being equipment, machinery, cattle, not real estate property. Once a tax is 5 years delinquent, it's no longer collectible. And it should be stricken off the books every year in June, once it's 5 years delinquent. That hasn't been done in our county for several years, probably. It's like,
We saw delinquent taxes from
since
99.
2005. Actually, on mobile homes, we have them going back to the year 2000. I can't say why it hasn't been done. I can just say it hasn't, and it's something we'll have to correct. And we'll have to wait until next June to do it. It does take a resolution from the commissioners for these taxes to be stricken off. So I did one report, excuse me, for mobile homes, for all the delinquencies. And it came out to $217,394.26. By June of next year, the amount that will be 5 years, once those are stricken off, the total amount will be $103,594.74. That's what we'll have delinquent for the 5 years that we can collect on mobile homes. With
So
personal
basically,
property,
we're losing about 100,000 in taxes, aren't we?
113,000. For personal property, we're sitting a little better. The total amount delinquent was $51,447.37. And as of June, the amount that will be collectible will be $22,127.55, so about a little less than 30,000 there. And again, those are taxes that should have been stricken off each year.
Or collected.
They just weren't.
Or tried to collect.
Or tried to collect, yeah, through the process that we're gonna talk about today. And this is kind of the process that, for mobile homes and personal properties, this is the process that's done instead of a tax lien sale, which is what happens with the real estate. A private company can come in and do a tax lien and pay the taxes, and the owner has the opportunity to redeem it. On a mobile home or personal property, it's quite a bit different procedure, and the county's way of redeeming those taxes, I guess, would be to seize some of their property. You can go as far as seizing airplanes, cars, bank accounts, yeah, almost anything. But it is pretty time-consuming, especially for the sheriff's department. Lewis and Clark County has one sheriff's officer and one treasurer's employee that do nothing but delinquent taxes for mobile homes and personal property. And that's all they do. And especially the sheriff's officer that was there was Steve Adson, ADSEM. And his recommendation was, in order to do this and do it effectively, at least for their county, he said it requires a full-time sheriff's officer to just be dedicated to that job. Broadwater is not as big as they are, but you know, given the time that it's been not followed in Broadwater County, I think the first year is going to be extremely hard on the sheriff's office. And the handouts that we gave you kind of describe what's the procedure is. once the writ is done and given to the sheriff's office, it's up to them to deliver the writ. It's also up to them after that time to collect the payments, return them to the sheriff's office, sticker the mobile homes, deal with the people on a individual level, depending how many people are involved.
Once we write the writ, it goes to the sheriff's office. It's out of our treasurer's office. It's solely on the sheriff's office to collect, communicate, and everything else with the person that owns the mobile home.
And I'm not exactly sure how many mobile homes would fall under the category of no longer being in the county or unlivable and just parked somewhere as junk, basically. And there is a form that the sheriff's office can fill out and give to the Department of Revenue. And then those houses can be stricken off the books. I did have a private individual come to me that had lived in a different county in Montana and proposed that maybe the county put an ad in the newspaper. These are the following landowners and taxes that are delinquent for mobile homes. That might be a good way to maybe weed out some of the people that have just not received the bills, you know, not.
The county used to do that. Remember, Elaine, you were probably in here at that time, didn't they?
I remember part of it, but I don't remember the whole thing. I remember that the sticker that the sheriff's office put on that was about,
Oh, yeah, on the trailer, but I think they listed, I think they listed all delinquent taxpayers at one time. If they were like, say, 3 years, I mean, was it just Mobile and stuff like that? If I remember right, I'm not, this is quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
that would have been before my time, I think.
That could have been. And then, but the sticker deal, that's not been too long ago, 10 years ago maybe.
In a really bright color,
Yeah,
fluorescent,
right
green,
over here.
yellow.
Yeah, they stand out. But, you know, I would be willing to run an ad in the paper to, put the properties and, once someone sees their name in the paper, having delinquent taxes, if it's a mobile home that they've sold and ownership just hasn't been transferred or.
They'll come let you know that.
Right,
Mhm.
right, I think that would weed out quite a few of them. It might not necessarily collect the taxes due. We might find out that mobile home was destroyed 5 years ago and just never taken off the tax list. But I think it would probably relieve the sheriff's office of a lot of legwork that they might have to do.
It's a good way to find
That's just an
out,
option.
a good way to find out.
Right, right. But it's just an option that we could try before we go into this, because, like I say, this is, once from talking to Lewis and Clark County, once the writs are done, the sheriff has to go out and deliver the writs.
In
They have
person.
90 days to make the payment. If the payment's not made, then they have to sticker the mobile homes. If the payments are made, or if there's payment arrangements, it's still a sheriff's office responsibility to collect the fees, turn them into the county. And it's gonna be a lot of work for the sheriff's department. The recipe that we do is an 8-page recipe. 5 pages of that go to the sheriff, so there's gonna be a lot of paperwork involved. It's just gonna be a pretty time-consuming job for Brenda's office, I think. And if we can do anything to kind of alleviate that, I think that would be a good thing to do.
Well, it sounds like the ad in the paper would certainly help take care of that.
Right, and we send out delinquent notices, been probably a month and a half ago now. And that did bring in a few people. Not as many as we hoped, but it did bring a few in. But a lot of these properties, I'm sure, are properties that are no longer here. The landowners might not be here, the mobile owners. A lot of them get returned in the mail as undeliverable. So it's a lot of work that you know, just basically cleaning up records is gonna be a lot of what we're doing.
That's what that ad might take care of a lot of that.
Yeah, the other thing when we talked to Lewis and Clark County that they mentioned was, you know, the things that you have to consider when you start doing something like this. You know, what time of year it is, how many children are involved, how many senior citizens are involved, what the cost of the mobile home is, what the cost of moving it if we get to that point, you know, taking it to the landfill or possibly a sheriff's sale. You know, I'm sure a lot of these are probably going to be more of a deficit to the county than an asset.
And it's like in that first page, on this one, I mean, it sets, if it's not done right, it does set the county up for legal action. I mean, it puts us, I mean, and it's a very touchy area of what it is. And this whole front page is pretty, I mean, shows you what it can happen if it's not done right.
And especially like in the fourth paragraph there, it says civil process is a very complex and multifaceted job. Excuse me, the rules governing civil process encompass a number of statutes and are contained in many of the 90 titles. It's the one area where you are most likely and most often to be sued. For that reason, it's very important for you to get an annually maintained and extensive policy and procedure manual covering civil process. So,
And just as a
and that's
reminder,
just-
Lewis and Clark County has 6 deputies assigned to their civil division, 6 of them. Broadwater County has 0. What we do is we process the civil and the deputies serve it. If it's a sheriff's sale, the undersheriff or myself handle it because they are so complicated. You know, and, you know, in this next, you know, just talking about the budget, I didn't budget for any of this because this all came after our budget, you know. Once you seize a trailer, I know Lewis and Clark County leaves theirs where they're at, then your concern is paying the lot rent, because once it becomes a county trailer, the county has to pay the lot rent. And if it's an abandoned structure with nobody living in it, I mean, I don't know, you might want to talk to Mako about the liability of the county, because once they seize it, they own it, from my understanding. Correct?
that was my understanding.
And then it's the county's responsibility to either move it, where would you want to store them? I mean, it all falls into place. So I would talk to Mako about, you know, our liability.
And really, you know, we've started the delinquent notices that we send out to the landowners, to the mobile homeowners. I'm not sure with as many past the 5-year deadline on the books that we have. I don't know what the legal liability would be to start this before next June when we have to take those and have them stricken off the county tax rolls. I'm not sure, I haven't checked into that part of it. But that might be something we need to take into consideration.
And know, I attended a workshop, and a lady from Bozeman that does it down there. And believe me, she was tougher than nails. She was matter of fact, this is what goes on, and so,
That's that, you're definitely not gonna be making any friends and doing
Oh, no.
this. I mean, the deputy that we were talking to, I mean, he says there are circumstances where they take payments, but if they're late, then he goes after them even harder. And, I mean, he wasn't just, this is what you owe paid by this day, and he was pretty compassionate about it for the most part. But he says it's a full-time job for him though also. He goes every once in a while to the sheriff's office and have him transport somebody, something like that, that's about it. But this is primarily where all he did.
And in a lot of cases, the officer from the sheriff's department that's doing this is almost like a social worker. He's gonna be dealing directly with a lot of people that, a lot of them are having hardships, and it's just the way it is. It's, like Charles said, we're not gonna be making any friends doing this, but we're not just in the business of making friends, we're in the business of collecting taxes. The one thing I can think of, I know that my office should be doing is the delinquent tax list haven't been done, not list, but delinquent tax notices. I know, I think it was about 3 years ago, the printer we used to print those, we can no longer get the card stock for. So to send out a delinquent tax list, you would print the list, they would all have to be folded, put in envelopes, and some of them were 4 pages, 5 pages long. It was worse than printing tax bills. It was a more timely and more costly procedure, and that's probably why it was kind of dropped. But I've talked with CSA. We've got it set up now to where we can print postcards off of the CSA system. So those will be sent out in a timely manner from now on for reals, mobile homes, and personal properties. So this is something that, I don't know if you would say it fell through the cracks or it was no longer cost effective. And then having the paper was used as a means of letting people know their taxes were due instead of the delinquent tax notices. I think that's just one way we could kind of help prop this process, and maybe, like I said, we have in the paper would be another way we could do it.
There are fees, sheriff, what Lewis Clark's does, they charge, sheriff's office gets $100, treasurer's office gets $30, so there's an extra $130 on top of what they owe. Just for fees to act all this.
Those fees, that $130, if the sheriff's office were to go out, serve a writ, make a payment schedule with the individual, and they defaulted on their payment schedule, there would have to be, once that writ was done and a payment schedule was made, then that writ would have to be redone. There would be another $130 charged to someone that's already having trouble paying their taxes. Just kind of almost add an insult to injury, you know, then they're already struggling and we're hitting them with $130. I don't know, you know, it's.
Yeah, of course, if that thing's over 3 years, you know, they better get their ducks in a row too, you know.
Yeah,
They're and actually, it can happen to a lot of people in different things, but where it goes on like this, I mean, it looks like, well, by June, we're gonna have to eat 100,000 in taxes right there.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
the two sides.
You know, and with that, if they would have been written off each year, which they should have been, You know, you wouldn't notice that huge. I mean, it would still add up to that same amount after the same number of years, but 2009 would have been 19,000 written off. 2010 would have been 25,000. You know, it wouldn't have been such a huge number.
I'm surprised that taxes are written off after a period of time. Did you ever know that?
That's Montana code, and no, I think that was a law that was kind of misunderstood until we started looking into this. And I think the way it was being interpreted by previous officers were that after 5 years, if it was unlivable, they would write off all the taxes. And that's not the way the Montana code reads. It's once a tax is on a mobile home or personal property is more than 5 years delinquent, it's to be stricken off the books.
Because if someone wanted to, if they were 3 years old, we might as well just wait out another 2 years and be forgiven.
And
you know?
that's when this process comes into play.
And to dispose of them, you have to take them to the landfill? That's the
Or
only
sell them
option.
at a sheriff's sale.
Yeah, they said they just leave them there. What they do in theirs, it's in the mobile home park, the landowner's gonna lose money by leaving an abandoned trailer there. So generally, they said they pay those, and then they haul off that trailer, and then they can have another trailer in there so they can get rent. But they said it's on personal property, they just leave it there and they fall to the ground.
And write the taxes off each year on it. The landowner's not gonna be concerned if you come out and sticker their property. To them, it's junk.
Yeah, so isn't there something in their junk like these old cars sitting around that they have to?
Like a junk vehicle.
Yeah, or like weeds, you know, to have, let these noxious weeds go, you know, and come in and take care of it. And of course, if they're not paying anything anymore, they're not gonna pay this, so.
Right.
Just
And I guess this is the answer to that. It's the writs and recipes and stickers. And then, you know, like Brenda said, once we go through this process, it becomes county property and it's up to us to dispose of it or resell it. I'm not sure what the cost would be to dispose of a mobile home. Brian would probably know a lot. Brian Holm would probably know a lot more.
I think he said it was a couple $100 they were charging, but some of the counties charge like $500 to, then you strip them off and sell what they can for salvage, you know.
Doug, if we did this, the people who are currently paying, say, $5–10 a month, nowhere near what they owe, but they're still paying more than what they can afford, how does that affect those folks?
If we write that order, then the sheriff's department would be able to make that decision to what they can do and can't do.
Okay, and they would be within their civil rights to treat those people individually and make a decision?
That's
Okay.
what they do, yeah. It's like what this Steve guy said, he goes, he has people making payments to him, and we can do that down in our office too. But it would, once we write this order, it's all on the sheriff, it's no longer in our office. So if they decide to take $50 or $10 a month, then they can do it that way.
Do you,
So-
you don't take payments, do you, for taxes?
For mobile homes,
You don't, you can't for mobile, but otherwise you can't.
right, mobile homes and personal property, you can't. Real estate, they have to pay at least at least one.
Well, that's what I was saying. So mobile homes are completely.
But mobile homes, according to Montana code, you can't take payments on it. Normally, when we set up a payment plan with an individual, we'll look at what they owe, tell them your next tax is due in November, May, whenever that is. In order to have this bill paid by the time that tax bill comes out, you would need to pay this amount of money each month. and try and get them to do that. Some people that's not possible. And you end up, you know, getting the best arrangement you can with them. But most of them that are serious about making monthly payments will come in and make that payment and try to get it caught up, because they're getting charged interest each month on what they don't pay. So,
Quick guess on this, roughly 200,000, how many mobile homes do you think that would be? Did you ever think of it that way?
I didn't, and really it's,
It was all 450.
yeah, and it doesn't, the report doesn't give a number of mobile homes. I mean, it would if I printed out an extensive report.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering,
But,
just curious what it would be.
yeah,
Doesn't the Department of Revenue go out and reassess all property every, what is it, 2 years? Or 4
5
years?
years, is it?
I think it's every 2 or 4.
yeah.
So they
And I'm
should
not
have an
sure-
updated list.
I'm not sure if mobile homes for them are different than real estate.
No, well, the only thing I can say is, when I first bought the property at 12 East, it had a mobile home on it, and we sold it, and the taxes were all paid at that time, and it moved to town. Well, then, she came back to me because it never got removed from their list. And I said, look, we sold that back here, and these are the people who own it. Well, it doesn't show transfer of new ownership, is the bad thing.
Right,
Um,
right, if they're 76
So they should
older.
know if the mobile home is still there or not, you know, because they were just getting ready to come out and reassess, you know, the properties. So they would have found out, but they just asked me about it because they knew it was, that we'd purchased the property.
See, and I don't know how Department of Revenue handles that, if the property is in a different ownership than the mobile home. I'm not sure how they do their assessments on that. Have to check with them.
I think they just
And see what
assess on the
their
mobile
procedures.
home. And then the owner of the property gets assessed on the land.
See, mobile homes, I think, are on a, and I'm just speculating on this. I think they're more on a depreciated value, like a car would be when you trade it in. Usually mobile homes don't appreciate in value, they depreciate. And I wonder if that's not how the Department of Revenue handles that, if they don't just have a table set up that depreciates it so much each year depending on their figures.
What about the mobile homes down in Goose Bay? Are any of those delinquent?
Most of those have been dealt with. I think there's still 3 that are left parked out there that no one has claimed, or I'm really not sure what's going on with them. They were supposed to have been moved.
And in order to move them, being a moving deck, you have to pay all taxes for the current year.
And that's what,
Oh, really?
yeah, that's what Steve Saltzman came to the meetings for, was,
That was 9 years delinquent, wasn't it? At that time?
I don't remember on that particular one, if it was 9 or if it went back to '09. I don't think it was 9 years delinquent, I think it went back to '09. But no, all of them that Steve has moved, the taxes have been paid and they're off the property. The 3 that are there, I think they're unable to contact the owners. And part of it is because of the way mobile homes are run. If they're older than a 76, there's no title exchange. They're sold with a bill of sale. And if the owners don't bring that bill of sale to the Department of Revenue, there's no transfer of ownership. With no transfer of ownership, the taxes are still mailed to the prior owner. And the current owner identity and mailing address is lost, not in the system. Not a good setup, but that's in the state's hands. There's nothing we can do about that.
Did Lewis and Clark County give you guys any sense of what their totals are? I mean, we're looking at probably after June, what's still collectible, about 125,000. How does that compare to what Lewis and Clark County's totals are? Do you have any idea?
So last year they made 48,000 they collected.
The year before last, he said it was about 50,000.
This year is at 160.
Okay, all right. And that's collected, not necessarily what they started with, that's,
Right,
right.
that's
Yeah, they didn't give
past
us the
due.
amounts that
Okay.
they had that were delinquent.
Um,
But they said the people in that division, I guess you would call it, that collected delinquent taxes, pay for their own wages with the taxes they collect.
But aren't the taxes levied for different areas? Like public safety, ambulance, road, you know what I'm saying? How can, they can't use those for the sheriff's office fund, that's my question.
No, they're,
No.
right, the fees that they collect make enough in the sheriff's department budget to pay for their wages.
So Doug, if a trailer is found to be unlivable and junk,
Mhm.
and it's one of those that you can't find the owner in, so it stays on a person's private property, say a 5-acre ranchette north of town, the liability for the trailer, would that still fall on the county, or would it fall to the landowner since it's on their private property? Any clues?
I thought they said it fell on, I'm sorry, Carl, it fell on the landowner, but
Okay.
I could be wrong.
And that's where, if we do the rep, do the recipe, do the sticker, the landowner says, do what you want to do, I don't care, it's junk, then it falls on the county. So,
Okay.
you know, you can, through this process, you can, if it's in the landowner's name, you could, you know, attach some of his belongings. If it's not in his name, you know, just because it's on their property, doesn't mean that they're responsible to pay the taxes if they don't want to. They would fall under the same laws that this does. You can't force them to get rid of something they don't own.
Sure. Sure.
No?
So if say a kid went and played in an abandoned car,
Mhm.
instead of a motorhome, and just cut themselves, the liability would potentially land on the property owner or the county.
Say that if
If
it's
a kid got hurt playing in a boat or a car that the taxes hadn't been paid on, that we went through this process on, who is responsible
I
for
guess
that
it,
child's
I guess it
education?
would depend on how far along we were with the process. If it had gotten to the place where the county was gonna assume ownership of it, it would be our liability.
Okay,
Before that, that's a legal question, I'm not sure.
yeah, probably
I'm
not
not
a fair
sure when that,
question.
yeah, I'm sure when that responsibility changes hands.
Sure,
And they said most of the time, in order, like I said, in order to move a trailer, you have to pay the taxes. And he said most, like, let's say they're on that 5 acres and somebody's fired it out there, and the guy ended up defaulting on a loan or whatever, they, most of the time, the property owner will pay it to move it out of the property, just so they can try it again, or do whatever they want with it.
yeah, and we have some of that in the county. I'm sure you guys are well aware of people who own lots that cannot get those old trailers moved, and they're losing revenue because nobody's in them, but, yeah,
So in most cases, it's to their benefit to pay the taxes, get the trailer off there so they can start regaining some of that revenue.
yeah.
Further questions?
No, just a problem I feel with, but not right. I don't think I did today, but I mean, it's, there's a lot, both ways to weigh it there. It's,
it's not an easy process.
That's right, no matter what, it's almost a losing situation.
And like I was saying earlier, there are gonna be times when you kinda have to consider what time of year is it, how many kids are involved, is it summer, is it winter? Are these people elderly on a fixed income? And you're gonna, how are you gonna relocate them? Does that become another county liability, or a state liability?
Seems to me you wanna partner with like the ministerial, group,
They said they
Red
contact,
Cross.
they talk to the county attorney a lot on some of those issues that they come across over there. So,
But if you would like me to, I will run an ad in the paper, post in the names, and we can post the addresses, the amounts, whatever we need to. That might bring in a few people that have slipped through the cracks through the ownership process or
If you do, I would think that you should have it worded in there that, maybe these don't belong to these people, and if not, be sure and get in here and let us know right away, so saving that part of it.
right. Yeah.
Lawsuit type of
something-
thing coming up, it has to be
something to-
worded a certain.
Right, something to the effect of the listed mobile homes are on the delinquent tax rolls, Broadwater County, the names and addresses may have changed.
Right, worded something like that,
In order to,
protect us,
well, right. Yeah.
and the person too, I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
I'm sure there are several in there that the ownership has changed, and in order to clear up county records, this list is being made to notify
You
the
know
registered owners.
what you might be able to do to save yourself some time being creative is call Lewis and Clark and ask them for their verbiage.
Yeah,
I'm sure they've done this.
and once you get this back on board, then you'll have yearly, you'll be able to, or within 3 years, you can.
yeah,
It
no,
won't be
it's
so
every year, the ones that are more than 5 years delinquent are stricken off, so you're never more than a year. Never,
I mean, the process will be better once you get kind of caught up on your end of it there.
yep. And really, once it's started, I think our end is gonna be the easier of the two. I think the sheriff's office is the one that's gonna get hit the hardest with this.
If you do an article in the paper or an ad, I would suggest you put it in both newspapers because, to make sure that people have read it.
Okay. I can work up an ad and bring it in and let you guys look at it. And make sure everything looks good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think as long of a time frame as this has gone without being addressed, anything we can do to make it easier on the public, make it easier on the people, is just gonna be to our benefit.
I think so.
So if you'd like, I'll work up an ad and we'll bring it into you. And
I like that idea, I think so.
I think that's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how you, as a board, feel about it. I really, with the amount of taxes that are on here, the amount of years that are on here, they can't be stricken off until next June. If we want to put that as a start date to start this written recipe procedure, that
It makes sense.
Kind It sounds like we have to too, what's the legal ramification of doing it before that? It seems to me to be a big one.
Well, and the officer that goes out to deal with this is gonna be able to tell them by a report that shows exactly what's due for those years, that is the bottom line. There's not gonna be any guesswork and
We're gonna,
additional fees.
with the OSTAT, they we're gonna have to get something set up where Brenda has one person do it, or pay an overtime or something to that effect, when we get to that point.
And I think, really, I think the first year is gonna be the year that's crucial for her office. I think once we get it in our operating procedure, I don't think we have near as many as Lewis and Clark does. I mean, they have several big mobile home parks, and we probably have, a lot of ours might be more time extensive for the sheriff's office because they're
Being scattered out.
so scattered.
Well, and you gotta figure too, at the sheriff's office, we gotta verify VINs on those, cause they may have pulled the one they thought was there off and put a new one on. It's very time consuming for
And I
us.
can't tell you the number of.
We have to make sure the legal description, everything is just like a sheriff said.
And the number of trailers that the Department of Revenue has listed on their tax rolls with no bins, no identifying marks, no, I mean, we even hit it, we even see a few that the measurements are a little different. Tons are usually not added as a length for the mobile homes. On some of them, they were, the name brand, when it asked for the make and model. A lot of people know the make, they don't know the model. You get the same name for both of them. It's a messy business, trying to identify them. Even just with Steve Salzman and the trailers that he moved from Goose Bay, there were a lot of them that had no VIN number anywhere. Couldn't be found.
And where did those ones all go?
I'm not sure where all of them went. Some of them were moved to Bozeman.
I think a lot went to Young County.
Yeah, we managed to get a moving deck made for them, even without a VIN number, just by going by make and model and length and width. If there's no VIN, and if it's been taken off, there's not a lot you can do to.
If this were something that we decided to do next year, as we really shouldn't wait until after June, shouldn't start it until June. Based on what you said about considering the time of year, can you legally, or is it practice on Lewis and Clark, to do the resolution in June, and then maybe a letter, and then visit it in the spring, so that people would have the 90 days after the writ, and then if they did have to move out, look at, a June, July timeframe rather than September, October, like you started in June.
The June timeframe is just for taking the taxes off the tax
That's what we're
rolls.
gonna have to decide on.
After that,
Then
then we
we
have
have
some wiggle room as to
to.
when we want to proceed with it. The only timeframes after that are crucial would be the 90 days after the writ's served, or the 45 days after they're stickered, or
Okay,
whatever Montana code has as a time frame for that.
okay, thank you.
What a job.
It is,
And to prevent this.
and as much as it sounds like we're losing tons of money, it's probably gonna cost us more to collect $100,000 in mobile home taxes than we're ever gonna see brought back into the county. And I'm just guessing. I could be way off base on
As you
that.
say, doesn't look good,
But it is, it is following Montana code, it should be, I mean, this is the way it has to be done according to statute.
Are we out of compliance with code by not doing it? Or do we have the choice of, if we do it, we do it that way, or we don't do it at all?
You know, that's another legal question I'm not sure I can answer, but it would be my guess that we're out of compliance.
Yeah, I think so
The
too.
state's losing money too, but us not doing this also.
That would
And
make
honestly,
sense.
the ones that pay $5 or $10 a month, we've only had really one of those that comes to my mind. And
And he paid for
they,
5 years,
Yeah.
$50 religiously every month. He came in and paid it. He finally got it all caught up. And there's a couple others, but most of them they'll pay a couple of times and then they're done. They won't go back in. And they come back in all mad at us because they still have delinquent taxes and they've been, well, I've been paying on it. I think last time you did was 9 months ago. So, and
most of them pay $200 a month and come in and get caught up. The ones that do come in to make a payment plan.
What do you think we have out there for real property delinquent taxes?
You know, I'd have to double check, it's not, I think we're standing pretty good with real property. And most of that is due to the tax lien laws.
People coming in and making payments for them, or
Yeah.
paying taxes.
There's a lot of companies out there that do the tax lien process, and they watch that pretty close.
Does Knucklehead still come in and do that?
I haven't seen them for a couple of years.
the big one right now is one in Drake Falls. It's, yeah, KG something. Yeah.
KG Land Company.
But they help us, yeah, they help us out more than anything, because as soon as they get those letters, those people come in and pay. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was Nickel or something like that. They sent one out to everybody at delinquent tax.
No, that was a company from Blackfoot.
Yeah. And I tell you what, there was just a rush of people coming in to pay. It was,
Yeah, I guess, you know, that just, my recommendation for the time that this has been not done, and I guess I would just recommend we put an ad in the paper, try and collect the taxes, we can send another delinquent notice. You know, do anything we can publicly to inform people that this is going on. And next June, when we do that, I'll have to meet with you next June to have a resolution done to have these taxes stricken off.
Probably try to get to it before June, so we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, it has to,
Maybe not
yeah, it has to
April or
be
May.
by June 1st, so. Right.
I definitely support the article that's in the ad. I think that's a great idea.
No, I think all three of us agree on that.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we'll do. We'll try and condense our list so it doesn't take 3 pages. I mean, obviously, we don't need each year and each amount for each year listed in paper, but if we
You
could.
don't even have to have the amount, actually, you can just say the name and the description, or
We could do that.
and save a little bit, if it'll work out.
Yeah,
I think you almost need that amount, don't you?
Well, the amount will be there when they come to make a decision on it, but I think it'd be a little, be less stuff to have to put in the paper and less stuff to research at this point.
yeah. I kind of think as long as their name and address is in the ad,
That's what it is.
it's gonna let them know that the people who are in the county that are responsible enough to respond are gonna see their name and address in there, and and call and say, you've got the wrong address, that's why they haven't been paid, or I sold that 5 years ago to someone in Phillipsburg, or whatever the case may be. And I think that way I think we'll see a lot of these cleared up just by letting people know that. I mean, it's not an easy process for them, it's not an easy process for the people that own them. You sell a mobile home to me, and you assume that it's being put in my name, and you're no longer responsible for it. Well, if I don't bring it into the Department of Revenue, it's still under your name. That's, that's just.
You would think a lot of them are caught by now, but like you say, just, yeah.
Right.
I think, got a question.
Mike?
Wouldn't you think though by putting a dollar amount would catch a little bit more attention and even some of their friends?
I
You
would
gotta
think
give them addresses and documentation, and that's against the law. You can't advertise somebody else's.
It's a delinquent in taxes, so.
I'll check into the legal aspect of it before I, but, yeah.
Yeah. You might talk to Carl and see.
That is public domain.
All tax information is public information,
Right.
but I will check into it and make sure that, I'm not overstepping my bounds.
I don't think you are. John?
John Wright, you know, from hearing just what Doug just says, it's gonna cost more money for us taxpayers to collect what's owed. And in reality, if we haven't never collected it, and I don't know if you're using this in the budget as a positive or a negative, but why don't we just consider resolving these debts, all except what's current? And then go from there, the ones you can identify, and not go into this big thing, but you're setting yourself up into a big monster. The sheriff's department can't afford to do it, it'll cost more money, and when you spend more money, you're gonna get, what is the good sense of it?
Thank you, John.
And that's a viable argument.
Oh, yeah. That's what I
Lewis
said
and
earlier.
Clark County says that their department that handles this pays for their own wages. If you look back at what we have for mobile homes, the amounts that would be stricken off, like I said, 09 would be 19,000. 2010 is 25,000, 2011, 25,000, 2008, 28,000. You know, that's pretty low wages for a sheriff's officer and a treasurer employee to have to struggle with this. You do have to look at, is it, you know, are you spending 500,000 to collect 10,000? I do think it's important to get these cleaned off the books and off the records, and I really do believe that we have a lot of them that are either no longer in the county, or maybe they're waiting for the fire department to do a control burn on them, or who knows. But yeah, I think maybe there's an easier way to do this than expending all our time and energy and money. But on the other hand, it is Montana code. It's Montana code to have them stricken off each 5 years. I guess Montana code would also apply to the writs and the recipes and it says that as a board and as a treasurer, we're responsible to the citizens of our county and how this money is collected or not collected. Budgets, everything else. You know, if it's going to cost us 100,000 to collect 20, then I think we should check into the legal opinion about what our options are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think I gave you the wrong year numbers on our delinquent mobile home, but I was just looking back through my tax report here. I think it goes back to 1993 on the mobile homes, on double check. Which is $100,000 for 20 years. Because I ran this report I ran it for all years that were in the system. And it does go back to 1993. So that $100,000 figure goes back 20 years.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
And Charles?
Okay, thank you. Brenda Lee. I didn't see if she had anything she wanted to add, but,
Thank you, Dan.
all right, we'll run the ad in the paper and check it.
Thanks, guys.
I will get the ad drawn up and check it with you guys and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
All
Thanks.
right, thanks, guys.
Mike, we'll jump to you now. Good morning, sir.
How are you? These are the three open bids for blacktop in the back parking lot.
Chair, I'll be right back.
Let's see.
Sorry.
Okay, the first one is from Apex Group.
What was it, 8?
Apex, A-P-E-X Group. It's located in Belgrade. The total price is $35,150.90. CAP Paving Inc. in East Helena. The total price is $45,900. Helena Sand and Gravel. The price is $65,755.
Sorry, this is gonna try and catch up.
It's funny because they all three have the same exact parameters to follow.
Yeah. Interesting enough, they all go up
10,000.
10,000 each time.
Now, is that with us preparing the lot, right?
Yeah, we would prepare, we would pull all the blacktop off, they're responsible for grading, because we don't want any responsibility for any slope issues. Because if there's a swale somewhere we didn't get right and they paved it, then we're responsible for, because the water holes there. So I'm making them be responsible while grading, and we supply them with the gravel. And there's a couple of tie-in things that we would do at the same time, like the downspouts coming out back here, we would tie in the stormwater is right there.
That have to go out to the street,
No, the stormwater's actually right there.
is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we looked, the stormwater runs right underneath the bay, so we could tie right into the stormwater, so those two downspouts can go right into the stormwater.
Ooh, okay.
With the-
That should be done anyway. What
Should have been given, one of them is.
Yeah, yeah.
The one right here by the corner here is tied in, and then the one 5 feet from it isn't.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I'm surprised there's a storm drain going that way.
Yeah, starts right here, runs underneath.
Oh, okay, I thought they had to go underneath this, just in the street.
We will do dig it up, and expose the pipe and put it into the pipe.
Oh,
I talked to the city's willing to help so far. According to Tim,
Mhm.
that he'd help with digging it up and the manhole, that's gonna be too high out here, and also help tie into the storm drain point.
So do you wanna take these and review them and make sure that they meet?
Yeah. I haven't seen them either.
Right.
I gave them all the sheet to follow. I gave them all the same.
And they
I
probably
did a
have,
walkthrough.
they probably have in there on the specs, I'm assuming, and stuff, but.
I don't know. This one has a lot of stuff to it,
I
but
did
the
a-
other two don't.
I did a walkthrough with each one of them. I did talk to, I put out there probably, everybody in the phone book, and only these three only showed up.
Or are you ready to vote on it now?
Well, I think we better take it under advisement and go through each one and talk with them.
I think I need to look at it, just make sure they did follow everything.
Right,
And,
right.
We can just put it back on next Monday, it's a stamp agenda tomorrow,
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Monday's a holiday.
Well, it won't be the Tuesday. Let it fall.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna be trying to get it this fall yet or not, it's hard to say.
We're running out of time, we're almost out now.
To see what they did.
They're getting into the cold weather, you're done.
Are you at training on the 15th?
Yeah, we have a holiday, I think, on the 14th,
Yeah.
and 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Okay, all right, so we would put you on the 21st, does that work? Okay. What do we call
The paving contract.
Review bids.
And for safety, I think that would be a very good idea if we could afford to do it. It would help with the snow removal. Right now, you can't even hardly do anything back there. Even Tim used to come through there sometimes, he said, and try to snow remove it, and he said you can't even do it, because it's so, everything's so bumpy and wavy back there.
Well, these neighbors over here complain about the dust.
Yeah.
And we can make the parking a little bit better.
Yeah.
Should we wait till the 21st? It's probably, it almost put it out for this year. Well, maybe, we don't know what the weather's gonna be like,
Who knows?
but, the thing is, there could be a change in price if we're still spring.
Most likely, everything was going up.
Usually. Especially if, the price of oil goes up.
Mm-hmm.
But, at this point, that's about all we do unless we wanna try to work it in before then.
Yeah, so you never know, we could have a dry, warm October, November.
Yeah, no, I mean, for us to make the decision, I don't know what's your pleasure, you wanna wait till the 21st, or you wanna try to do something sooner?
Mike is gone.
Well, I know, yeah, and those,
Well, you guys could vote on it, I can go over it, and then I'll individually talk to you guys during next week, this week, if you
I'm at Border Crime Control this week, so I'm not available.
I'd say wait until the 21st, because I would like for you to be here.
Right. Well, the only two other things I'd like to talk about real quick, and one is downstairs, there's really no heat. There's an old system, there's the ductwork system, and I figured, I looked into two different ways to replace it to make the heat, so we have heat downstairs in the basement. One is with doing 5 wall heaters, which would cost approximately $1,200 with all the materials. Or changing the system to a gas system, which would cost about $5,500. I know that doing a payback on this 5 units, I can pay it back in 9 months in just electric costs. Because downstairs, that thing it's a 24 kilowatt heater, electric heater downstairs. Air blows through it, and it's not very efficient, and it just keeps picking. It's not, the cost effectiveness of running that system is not very good. We can put wall heaters in certain offices. I think that we can regulate the heat better down there and make it more comfortable down there, because it does get cold unless we run that thing, and that thing's supposed to run, it'll run 24/7.
Well, we girls can attest to how cold it gets down there in the winter.
Yes, it does. So I mean, that's what I'm asking for, is change them out to wall heaters, put them in 5 offices, and keep in their offices a little order, more comfortable management. And then just leave the system off as downstairs.
And then would each office have,
Their own control, and they
Okay.
have to be responsible for managing their controls.
no 90-degree
That's right.
offices left on for the weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, they could turn it off at night and turn it back on in the morning, so that it doesn't, because they're set at 45, you turn them all the way off, turn them down to low, or 55, I think. So at least it wouldn't freeze them, and they can turn them up when they come in to a normal temperature. And they would blow the heat in there and keep it, warmer, instead of what we're doing now, because right now the cost is outrageous, that heating system down there. It's just through the roof.
So what's your pleasure, board members?
We've got people working down there. The cost is out the roof, 9 month payback, and then we're saving, in my opinion, it's responsible. There's a cost up front, but we save money in the long run, because we're gonna be here in this courthouse a lot longer than 9 months. So, I think we have to do it.
All right, pleasure.
Yeah, what was this cost for 900, you said?
It's almost $1,200 with all of the parts and labor. And then we can have, it'll be payback in 9 months.
I think that makes the most sense right there.
I would entertain a motion.
I will move that we authorize Mike to move forward with his recommendation for more efficient heating of the basement of this wonderful old courthouse.
Go with that.
Okay, just a second, we have a question out here. This isn't on the agenda.
Oh, she's right. Well, yeah, it is, because of, here's my agenda. But it would just be Mike. Oh,
Yeah, it says-
just opening bids? Yep, we'll have to put it on the agenda then for
Next time.
next Monday.
Tuesday.
Following, or whatever you guys can vote on.
We can put it on for the 15th.
Okay.
But it is, it has to be done tomorrow, I guess,
No,
so,
but.
you know, it's,
And then one other issue I didn't bring up, which isn't on the agenda, is the heating systems in both first floor and second floor. The control systems here I already have 2 of the controllers that are broken, that will not work. We do need to really replace those, and also I can regulate the heat in the first floor and the second floor a lot better. Right now, I'm constantly watching and having to deal with this. The system it constantly shuts down because of the not, it just sits there, it'll change time on me all the time, it'll go in setback modes all the time, just because of a problem in the computer system. And I've calculated that one too, and I have a payback on that one, 1.10, 1 year, 10 months. If we replace that and all the damper systems. And that comes to almost 10 grand if we do that. So you guys can discuss that too.
Okay,
I'll add that to the agenda too for the 15th.
Okay, I'll give you guys copies of these.
Okay.
thanks, Mike.
Alright,
Have a good meeting
So
next week.
out of date, what's the date of it? Do you know? What does out of date mean as far as how old it is right now?
it's the original system, I think it's almost 1995.
Okay.
It was installed. I have to look back exactly the date. But you can't replace any of these, there's no replacement parts or anything. And if you replace the controller, you have to replace the damper. The whole damper system and everything. They're completely out of date.
Okay.
So if the main controller goes here, the whole system shuts off.
Could that be a bad thing in the middle of January? And
Yeah.
expensive?
Yeah, because then I have to have help instead of me doing it myself, just replacing controllers and pulling dampers out. I'd have to have, like, Tri-County come in and help me, because everybody's gonna be wanting it done yesterday.
Or they'll be staying home for a couple days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a system that, and I'm constantly having to, go in there and reprogram it almost weekly. And even Tri-County says that if it does fail, the system will shut down and there's nothing you can do.
How much time are you spending on it weekly? Any guesstimates?
Not too much with the reprogramming and stuff, probably
Okay.
5-6 hours. And the dampers don't, all of a sudden they'll start not working, and you gotta go up in there and adjust the dampers constantly and play with it and trick it. You have to almost trick the system to work.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, we'll go back to budget. We have to be out of here no later than 10 to 1. So, whatever your pleasure is. The judge needs this room this afternoon. And give us time to clean up. I want to be done 10 to 1 or sooner if at all possible.
Elaine, we have had 4 working meetings on this budget. It is, in my opinion, a responsible budget from start to finish. We've put out some olive branches that we've talked about at length as far as targeting some smarter ways of taking care of things right now that we're paying quite a bit for. I move that we adopt the proposal that was brought forth last week, and that is on the Mills by Fund to hold fair, library, ambulance, senior citizens meals. Hang on, should we rescind that motion that we made that wasn't on the agenda before we put a new motion on the floor?
Did we get a second on that motion?
Okay, then we're good, right? Okay, so we hold fair, library, ambulance, senior citizen meals, senior transport, extension, and museum to last year's levels. Take airport to 0.87 mils, which is what they would have been at had they not been defunded last year. Take weed to the 1.6 as legally declared per MCA.
And add 5.
And then that's voted, so that's not part of the floating mills. Health insurance, leave at the 19.18. General fund, subtract those 6.37 mils, take it to 39.24. And then increase law enforcement to 24.31, detention center to 7.39, search and rescue 1.3 for a total of 107.88 mils.
what?
107.88.
Franklin?
More Brenda's decision in mind, if this isn't gonna work for her, I don't know how we can approve anything.
I think we can do like we have before and come back in and give it a shot in the arm and pelt.
So was it built in now, and
We'll be
then,
tilting it now.
and then built again at, when she needs it?
Mhm.
With a proposal, yeah, I think we need to hear, you know, the basics. That's it,
Well, I
just the
think we've had
basics.
that time after time. I guess, what do you think, Brenda? You're the one that's gonna try and make it work.
Without any changes on this fiscal year 24 revenue and expenditure summary, I can't answer that. I've explained that to you. Without seeing them here, I mean, I'm not gonna comment one way or the other. I've explained to the commission what I need as far as to make the year. How you fund it is your decision.
Further comments?
Well, it sounds like you don't have anything yet. I guess the only thing that'd be left out there is when it doesn't work and she's out of money, she has to come back and we're gonna have to,
Madam Chair,
Take care of
should
the
we
issue
second
then.
on the motion before we enter into
That's what I was
conversation?
is that,
But shouldn't we have that before we have discussion?
gotta have discussion so we know what we're doing for sure.
Yes, but per Robert's Rules of Order, you have the second first and then
Then
call for discussion.
Before the horse.
I didn't hear you, John.
I said cart before the horse.
So are you seconding that motion or what? I will. Discussion.
Okay, well, the discussion is, she doesn't know how she's gonna get by yet. I guess the part is what, we go with what there is, and when, you run out, you come back to us and we take care of it.
Then I respectfully ask you, Madam Chairman, do all elected officials have to do this?
If they were in the same situation, yes. Right now, no.
Have you gone through line item by line item with every other elected official?
You know, I was out sick. I can't answer that. When the budget process started, I was in the hospital, so I can't answer that.
Well, I know that I went through line item by line item with you, what was it, 3 weeks ago, I'm guessing? When you asked me what this line item was, and, you know, but since then, the other commissioners, have you gone through every budget line item by line item with every other elected official?
No.
And that pretty much says enough to me, because my budget is down from last year. My expenditures. I have never overspent my budget. You know, and you're asking me to do the impossible again for the 4th year in a row, and then come back to you and ask for more money. Like I said, I submitted my budget with what expenditures I have, what revenue I have. It's up to the commission to do the budgeting.
This shows a total increase in law enforcement of 5 mils.
What are you looking at? I have the budget for my public safety department right here,
Right here.
showing 19.39 mils. If I can't look at what changes are being made, you're asking me to make a decision? That isn't even fair.
Law enforcement is 24.31.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ann Ralph. With all due respect, right now it is down to the commission's decision.
It is.
It's moved and seconded then to approve the budget as presented. All in favor say aye. Oppose the same.
No.
One Franklin is a no. Well, I yes. Motion carried. With that, I'll adjourn the
Actually, before you do, I think we should work on the two things. One is the detention center surplus above the 33%. I do believe that since the 140 was erroneously put into law enforcement last year, that it is an olive branch that we should offer to law enforcement to put 82,647 of that surplus into law enforcement from the detention center. And that is their net profit over that 33%, and then make up the difference to get to that magical 140,000 from PILT of 57,353. And I want to address one thing with PILT, because I think we need to address one other thing for clarity in just a second. Some people will say that PILT is just taxpayer dollars, which is a very simplistic way of looking at PILT, and it shows a lack of understanding of what PILT is. PILT is derived from a variety of sources. It comes from the general fund at the general treasury at the federal level. One of the sources of PILT is those people who pay to go into public lands, like Yellowstone National Park, Glacier, some of the others. So to say it's just taxpayer dollars is ignorant, because if you go to Yellowstone National Park, you will see people from Germany and South America and China, and those people are not citizens. Many of them are not citizens of the U.S. and therefore do not pay U.S. taxes, and yet we pay into the PILT system because they pay to get into the land. So that is my second proposal to the budget, to try and help out the law enforcement budget.
Need a second?
No, I don't know what kind of proposal that was, talking about people from Germany.
No, Franklin, it's pure and simple. The detention center had a surplus of
Yeah, that's fine, put
82,647.
that in there.
Then we're gonna take the remainder of 57,353 from PILT to make up the difference to infuse into the law enforcement. What's your pleasure?
Does it bring it up to what she needed? I don't believe it does, so she told me what she needed, so I'll still vote against it
Okay,
until they can figure out how it's gonna be.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
I think we've been
Question.
discussing it forever.
This one's it.
Okay.
Tim?
Madam Chair, just an error of caution. I think there's a pretty clear crystal ball on the detention center, even though there may be right now, current time, this surplus that you speak of, to anticipate that this detention center is going to maintain its fluent position might be a little bit naive, if you will, because we do know for a fact that Lewis and Clark County and Gallatin County that have made that detention center whole and have a surplus, those facilities that are being put on operation are going to have an impact on that detention center. So if we don't anticipate that loss of revenue in that budget, I personally, as a taxpayer, am fearful that that detention center may end up back in that same position of not being whole. Basically robbing Peter from pay Paul. Here we are again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, Ann Rouser, we are not talking robbing Peter to pay Paul. We are talking in excess over the 33% reserve that is allowed by law.
That's right.
And I would add, Madam Chair, the other departments, and I stated earlier, there is a surplus in other departments of that same funding that are being utilized in their departments. Cash flow balances and making, above and beyond budget. So
Thank you.
apples and oranges and apples and bottom line. Thank you.
The only reason we're talking about the detention center for this is because that 140 was erroneously put into law enforcement, correctly put into detention center, but yet maintained in the spending line for law enforcement. That's why it's correct that it comes from detention center, and we make up the difference, so that that should be whole.
Moved and seconded then. That the detention center